Today it's all about reverb, how to set the reverb up to improve your production, which type of reverb is best, and what you actually can achieve with a reverb. Hey guys, and welcome to my studio. First up, really great news. The song by the Noise Geeks that was released last week already reached over 15,000 plays in just 5 days, which is really amazing. Best start for my label ever. If you're interested to send in demos, the link is in the description. I'm looking forward to receive new demos. I haven't planned the last quarter of this year, so if you have anything, just send it over. And also my release is coming up this Friday, so just in a couple of days, I'm really looking forward to finally be able to share it with you in full. I mean, you heard like snippets here and there on this vlog, but the full song will be available on all stores on Friday. Today is a full music production day. This means looking at the screen for at least 10 hours, trying to mix a song that I already mixed a couple of times. It's always the same thing, but today I wanted to concentrate in the video on something that a lot of people have been asking me, and that is everything that has to do with reverb. Which reverb to choose when, how to set the reverbs accordingly, and how just to get your production to the next level by using a reverb. Because I think it's one of the most important things. It's, at least for me, the thing that got my productions from mediocre to kind of sounding better a little. First up, let's start with something extremely simple. Guitar, processed, EQ'd, effects on top, one version without reverb and one with the reverb. I think we can agree that there is a huge difference. Without the reverb, it just sounds extremely dry, extremely close, extremely unprocessed, not really professional. And with the reverb, it sounds more natural, wider, bigger, and a lot more distant. And the distant part is, I think, one of the key features about reverb when you're mixing, because this way you can push things back onto the front, and this way make them interfere less with each other while mixing. It's not such a big deal as EQing, where you can separate things even more, or having things really stereo wide and mono, but it's still a layer of separation. When it comes to types of reverbs and different plugins for reverb, there are a million of them. All of the ones that are provided with Logic are extremely good. I usually use the Valhalla Vintage Verb. I just personally love the sound of it, and I think the more vintage kind of reverb sound fits better to my productions. But just go with any reverb plugin you have available. They're usually all extremely good. There are a lot of different reverb types for different situations. The most basic one a lot of people just forget is the room reverb, the reverb that you have in your room. You could just set up a microphone in any room, record something in there, and you get the room reverb. Here in this room, there's almost no room reverb, so if I clap, there's almost none. It's all like absorbing material just so I can produce a little better in here. But room reverb is maybe the most natural sounding, because it is natural, but also the hardest to control and the hardest actually to create and make, because you just have to go somewhere, record there, and not all rooms are perfect for room reverb recordings. And then you have, of course, hall reverbs, and in big spaces you have chamber reverbs, and smaller spaces that are extremely reflective and this way get a long tail. Plate reverbs were a revolution back in the 70s, 80s, I think. It's like a metal plate in a wood box, and you transfer your sound in there and it bounces back and forth and creates this reverb. I personally really like the plate reverb sound. I use a lot of plugins that are emulating plate reverbs. And speaking of plugins, there are a whole lot of plugins that emulate these kind of rooms and scenarios. You have some that just generate it with an algorithm, and you have some that generate the reverb with an impulse. So someone recorded somewhere an impulse response. It's basically you fire one short sound and record it in the room, and then they calculate the difference that it made to the sound before and after and apply it to other sounds. I think these are like the basic reverb types. There are a lot more, and I probably forgot some, but with these you can basically make whatever you need to make. And when it comes to setting reverbs up, I usually start with presets. For example, here the Valhalla Vintage reverb has a ton of presets, huge spaces, plates, chambers, rooms, halls. It's all in there, it's all labeled, and it usually gives you a good starting point. So for example, for this guitar right now here, I would go for a plate reverb. Maybe let's take the dark plate. And you can hear immediately it's too much reverb. It sounds washed out. You can't hear the attack of the guitar anymore. You might want to go for that. Stylistically, it's your choice. There are just two knobs you really have to understand. One is the mix knob. It's the amount of reverb you apply on your source, dry, wet. And then you have the decay knob, usually the big one, that tells you how long the reverb actually is. And here in this case, it's 3.52 seconds. That's really big and huge and long. So we can make it shorter. And you can hear it sounds a little awkward because the reverb is now short, but there's still a lot of reverb. So the reverb starts, there's a lot of it, and it fades away immediately. It creates a little pumping effect, kind of. So I would give it, again, more decay time. And then just go to the mix that I have here set up on my bus number 7. I always put my reverbs on buses so I can reuse them on other elements, and this way give a lot of elements the same reverb, saving a little bit of CPU and also being able to glue things together, make them sound like one. This is really important for stacking synthesizer sounds and also making drum loops. But here I will just dial it down. And that's something that is usable. If you don't like the tone of it, there are a lot more settings to all reverbs. For example, here you have the damping, the shape of the reverb, the size of the reverbs. You can actually alter on most reverb plugins. The room size, the room shape, you can change the tag of it. Also really important, most reverbs have it nowadays, is in built-in EQ. So you can EQ away the low frequencies or the top frequencies. Especially cutting away the low frequencies makes the reverb sound a lot cleaner. The pre-delay is something, it's not really complicated, but I don't really use it a whole lot. The pre-delay basically gives you a little bit more of the dry signal at the front, and the reverb starts a little later. So this way you can preserve the attack of the original sound. But I mean, in most cases you can leave it at 0, so the reverb starts immediately with the instrument, which is like the natural thing to happen, but you could add the pre-delay. And I've chosen an extreme setting so you can actually hear it. So with the long pre-delay, just here it starts dry and then the reverb kicks in. Just leave it short, maybe 10 milliseconds if you want to have a snappy sound and retain the attack of the original sound, or just leave it at 0 if you don't know what you're doing. But if you make it really long, it's more an effect than an actual reverb, so be careful with that. So those are like the basic settings of the reverb. Just play around with it. My tip usually is, if you get a new plugin, just put it onto something, play around with it, and just listen and hear what it does. That's the best way to learn a new plugin. Also for the reverb, you should be able to hear everything it does. Just put it to an extreme setting, listen to what it's doing, and then dial it back down again. Usually for reverbs, I like to go back to a point where you can't really hear the reverb, where you can't hear that it's like really deep, washed out in reverb, but so that you definitely hear that it's gone whenever you put it on mute. So I actually have reverb on basically everything, maybe except for kick and sub bass. Everything else has at least some sort or form of a room. Even hi-hats get a little bit of ambience. I will show you that in a bit. Let me first mix the song, and then I will go back to the drum section and show you how I deal there with the reverb. done with work, all done with mixing. I have to hurry up. We're having guests coming over tonight. I completely forgot about that. So unfortunately won't be able to continue this topic, but don't worry, there's another day tomorrow in the studio doing the same thing. And if you're interested, I will link down below 2 more videos that are more advanced tips for reverbs.
Can't shake the feeling, I can't help myself. In time with the city lights.